Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode number 6 of Performance Shift, this amazing podcast. So if you've ever wondered what it takes to achieve remarkable success, to overcome obstacles and transform your performance in the face of big change, then you're in the right place.
That's right. Welcome to Performance Shift, the podcast that will give you a journey of discovery and exploration, transformation, and give you all the tools to navigate your own moments of change.
And my name is John Register. I'm a two-time and two-sport Paralympic athlete, a combat Army veteran. I'm an author as well. And this is my co-host, the one and only
Kat Koppett. I'm an organizational consultant, an author, an improviser, and a theater owner.
And I've been to her theater. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So together we're going to be sharing experiences and insights on how we can navigate change and find success in the face of adversity.
We have launched our actual podcast version of our live show. We are now up, John, on Apple and Google and Spotify and a whole slew of other places where people might be listening to podcasts. And that was a Olympic level feat in itself, I have to say. I'm very proud.
So is that a teaser?
It is. Go there, find it, share, listen in your car. If you're not getting up early in the morning, there you go.
No, this is great. I can't wait to listen myself. I haven't even heard it yet to see how it's sounding.
Yeah,
we've had some great guests on. I mean, we've had like Garrett Reisman, astronaut out in front, out in outer space, spacewalker dude. And then who else? We had Carrie Abbott.
Yes, Friddle, maker of delicious candy. You should buy some and send it for graduation presents, which are coming up.
Hey, confectionaire. She was amazing. And today, oh my gosh, what is happening? We keep on going up. I don't know, how can we get higher than space?
Well, I don't know. We might have.
I think we just did. Faster than a rocket.
Tell us who it is.
Okay, all right. So picture this. I love that setup. The chilling rush of icy tracks, hairpin turns, 90 miles an hour in an ice rocket called a bobsled, the thunderous roar of anticipation, and the relentless pursuit of victory. Our guest has conquered the heights of the Olympic game and thrived amidst the ever-changing landscape of elite sports. Her adaptability and her ability to adapt, innovate, and harness the power of change has set her apart as a true maestro of high performance. Throughout this captivating episode, we're going to be exploring the intricate strategies behind her success. We'll unravel the secrets of her unwavering determination, uncover the sacrifices she'd made to reach the pinnacle of her sport, and delve into the mindset that fuels her extraordinary achievements. Get ready for a conversation as we dissect the synergy between resilience and performance, learning how to navigate the treacherous curves of life and emerge victorious with bronze medalist, the one and only Sylvia Hoffman.
Good morning.
Good
morning to you.
You know, I might typically say we shouldn't overpromise, but I am completely confident that we did not overpromise with that introduction.
Oh, man, it was awesome. I was like, wow, look at this guy.
Who is that person?
This? Like,
wow, let me think.
Authored this. Yeah, this was amazing. I mean, it was probably one of the best introductions I have heard in my entire athletic career. So kudos to you, John.
We got to make it proper. First, I got a question. Okay, so you see the show. It's called Performance Shift. When you hear the words performance shift, what immediately comes to your mind as it relates to your life?
I mean, in everything, we got to perform at some point, you know, whether it's live sport, business, any of those things. But then you have to shift it. So I like when you have the performance shift, because sometimes you have to shift that focus a little bit to something else to still achieve whatever you're going for. So, I mean, you could have a roadblock. You could have, you know, like they say, hurdles. And sometimes you have to shift that particular perception of what you need to do to actually continue and prosper in everything that you have going on. So I like it. You know, it's performance shifting, you know, it's a mindset change, but you're still keeping in mind of what you want at the end of the day. and I like it.
Hey, I love that. What do you think? You got some cat?
Well, no, well, there's so many places we could go.
Yeah.
I'm imagining two things that are probably true, knowing about your career, and maybe you can give us a little bit of overview for our listeners. But you've had not just shifts, I imagine, in your career in one sport, but you've also shifted sports. So I'm interested in that. Like, how have you, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about that journey and when you've known that big shifts, like, oops, I have to try something other, right? Not just within the sort of little shift.
Yeah. So for all the listeners out there, I am a multisport athlete. I have had three main sports in life: basketball, through high school and college. And then I did Olympic weightlifting from college into about 2018. And then in 2018, I switched to bobsledding. And I've been doing that for the last 5 years. So with basketball, obviously, it's one of the main sports in the world. I was introduced to it at a very young age, somewhere probably around like 6, 7 years old, maybe even 5. I don't know. But I was young enough to, understand, like, wow, this could pay for my scholarship, my scholarship. This could get me through life. This could maybe possibly, I might enter the WNBA. Who knows where this can take me. So, like I'm playing basketball, it's junior high, in high school, and we're doing really well. And I just felt like it wasn't something that I chose, because I remember that my dad was like, well, hey, here's this basketball. But at the time I was playing, soccer outside with my friends, softball outside with my friends. I love to be outside running and sprinting up and down the streets. And, I was just like, okay, cool. Well, let's try basketball. And I felt like it was a cool sport. There's a lot to offer with it. But there was a couple opportunities that I think would have been more so my choice if I wanted to do it, because I wanted to always represent my country, but I didn't know how. And I wanted to do it either, via athletics or in the military. And in high school, I had a couple opportunities to represent Team USA basketball. Did I know what that meant at the time? Not entirely, because my knowledge was very limited. It was just like, you get this piece of paper in the mail that says, hey, do you want to play in Australia for USA basketball? And I'm like, cool, so, and, it's like, yeah, I want to do that. And, I introduced it to my parents and just say no. And I'm like, what? That's crazy. This is Australia. Come on, guys. They're like, nope, we got other stuff going on. You go to camp and AAU. And I'm like, man, that kind of sucks. And I get another opportunity just to go to a regular basketball camp. And I'm assuming it was out here in Colorado, because now that I see everything in Colorado, everything happens here. So, I got another piece of mail that just said, hey, you want to come to a basketball camp for USA basketball? And I'm like, hey, let's do this. And they're like, hey, no. And I'm like, oh, dang. So I think that kind of killed my drive to want to like really play basketball, because I'm like, well, now am I doing it for me really? Like entirely? Am I choosing these routes? Or is someone else choosing them for me and I'm just kind of going along for the ride? So, I knew the investment that we had made already. I'm like, okay, I've been playing it since, YMCA days. I've won state in basketball. I'm playing AAU now. I know it can help me get a scholarship. So, it can help me pay for college. And, that's the route that I took. I was like, well, I have all of this investment. I'm going to put it where my school is. And it just seemed like every decision I made was not necessarily to continue basketball. It was to, help pay for school, but then also utilize my talent to also help the basketball team that was there. So with that being said, my basketball, just my drive to want to do it just started to decline. I'm like, well, I want to do something different, but I don't know what to do, because the school that I had chosen, my university, they didn't have like too many sports there. It was an NAID1 school, and then we were very limited. And I was just like, well, there's really not much to do. They thought about putting volleyball in, but then it never happened. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to do golf, definitely, there's not doing baseball, so it wasn't really much for me to do. And then there was an Olympic weightlifting team on my campus. We had a high performance and development center right on our campus. And I was like, what? Okay, that seems pretty cool. Never seen weightlifting before. And I began to make some friends on the weightlifting team towards the end of my basketball career. And I was like, okay, this might be a thing. And they're like whispering in my ear, hey, you should join weightlifting. And I'm just like, I don't know, maybe I should join weightlifting. And so I actually spectate my first weightlifting competition. So like I always watch before I do, so I can like at least kind of survey the field, see what it's like, you know, instead of just jumping in and not having any idea of, you know, how to do something and how it goes. So the first meet I ever spectated, one of my teammates, now he's a 3-time Olympian. He had only been to Beijing at the time, but he tried to break an American record in the gym for University Nationals because we hosted it. And I'm like, what? American record? You know, and the gym was packed, you know, just like a basketball game and some, you know, there's obviously people from different states, you know, and everyone's trying to, you know, either compete or watch the competition or just, you know, just be there and be present. And I'm like, wow, this one person has this entire gym full of people. I was like, you know what? Sign me up, coach. I want to do it. And I told our coach, and I was like, hey, Kyle, I want to do it. Kyle Pierce is he's a United States weightlifting coach. And he's just been a part of the program for several years. And he's also a professor at LSU Shreveport. So I asked Kyle, I'm like, hey, you know, I want to join a weightlifting team. He thought I was joking. And because I kept coming back and he's just like, yeah, I heard this before. Like, because, you know, people do this. They say, hey, I want to do it. And then they never follow through. So for him, he had been a part of the program for years and just was like, okay, yeah, I know when someone's going to do it and someone's not. But I kept coming back. I'm like, hey, when am I going to start? When am I going to start? And then he was like, you really want to do it? I said, yeah. So he puts me on a program and I start lifting weights. And I'm like, okay, now how do I do this every day? You know, I'm just like, I don't know how to do this. But I had a program just like everyone else. So it wasn't that difficult. And so I did that for, let's just say 8 years. I made 3 international teams. And, you know, I got injured somewhere in the middle. And I'm just like, I don't think I'm going to make it. Because after the second team I made, I noticed my progress wasn't as, I didn't progress as well as some other people did. And I'm just like, why is that? And it was just because like, I didn't get some of the fundamental coaching that I needed to, you know, keep me ahead of this curve, because I was able to power clean like 90 kilos and everyone else is like struggling. And at the time, like that was a big thing to do. And, you know, that was also a sign of like, oh, this person is going to be really good. But because I never learned how to do a full clean, a full snatch, you know, front squats, all these positional strengthening training exercises that was going to make me stronger in the long run, I wasn't doing those from the beginning. And because of that, it was just an uphill battle from day one. And I didn't notice until like year 3.5. So I'm like, well, I don't think I'm going to make it. I'm going to try to make one more international team. It was after my injury. And I did make it. I'm like, all right, I made the team for Taipei. Cool. USA Nationals 2018 is coming up. I'm like, this is probably going to be my last time competing, you know, and I'm just like, the depression starts to roll in because, you know, you're an athlete. You're just like, what do I do? There's nothing else to do. You know, like no one's going to, you know, like help me out with this. And so I got an ad for the next Olympic hopeful. You know, I'm sitting at, you know, I'm working from home that day and I get an ad. I mean, I'm on lunch break and I'm looking at my phone. I'm just like, wow, okay. Okay. It's a scouting camp for athletes. You know, it's supposed to be in Colorado Springs, 15 minutes from my house. I can do this. So I signed up for it. And I didn't know it was part of like a documentary at the time. Again, I'm like tunnel visioned out. I'm just like I said, depressed, trying to find a solution. And I find one and I'm just like, just fill it out. It says scouting camp. I was like, that's the only words that was just like, that just made a difference. Everything else didn't matter. And so I do the tryout, I make it, and I'm able to do the competition. And honestly, like I was one of the best athletes there. And this isn't to hype myself up. I love me. But I was one of the best athletes there. And I was able to be chosen for about 4 different sports I could have did. And one of the because the coach asked me, he's just like, so you can actually fit in a bunch of these sports. And there was like technically 6 sports, but 5 NGBs. And he was just like, so which sport do you want to do? Because you can kind of fit wherever. And I'm just like, well, I'm here at this point. I was 28. I'm like, I'm here for you to choose me because I've been making these decisions in life and I'm really trying to make an Olympic team and I'm not really there. So you choose me and then I'll figure out the rest. And he's just like, well, it's still your choice. I'm like, I get it. but I still want you to choose me. so he, I guess he brings it back to the coaches. I'm chosen for 3 different sports to try it out: bobsled, cycling, and track cycling, and boxing. So I'm able to do boxing and I'm able to do bobsled, like just the push cart. So we did push training and I had the fastest push times. And I'm like, cool, all right. And then I'm like super blown up for boxing, but I had like my legs wrapped and I'm having a great time. I was like, man, that's pretty cool. Actually, I like it. And I was so blown up that I never made it to cycling. So, long story short, I stuck with bobsled because I actually was able to give it, a really good go. And, I kind of enjoyed it. And I basically beat all the men. I was just like, I think that's a good sign. Maybe 1 or 2 men. And I'm just like, I think it's a good sign. Let's do this. And now I'm in bobsled and it's going really well. I'm winning push-offs, push championships. I got, fast times at team trials. I'm making my first World Cup team my first year. And I'm just like, okay, just carry that momentum. And then you got it, just continue to like learn, study, do the best you can. There's, top performing athletes that's bound to come back in. And then they did, we got Olympic medalists coming back. I'm, up against, other Olympic athletes. And I'm just like, okay, just keep it together, just head on straight, just straight and narrow. And then any challenges that kind of came by, I just was like, trying to like just not be fazed by them because I did all this work to get here. I'm just like, you're almost there. Just keep pushing. And then they named the Olympic team my 4th year. And I'm on the line, I'm with, one of the best pilots in the world. We get a start record to start it off. And I'm just like, yeah, start records, that's where we're at, and as a brakeman, like that can really showcase how fast you are. So I'm just like, okay, I got a fast pushing pilot. I'm also fast. We have a start record. We're starting off to a good start. And then, we break our own start record in the 3rd heat. And in the 4th heat, we come out with bronze. And I'm just like, wow, this is, we did it. I did it. There's this weight that's lifted. And I'm just like, I can just let it all out and just, just enjoy the moments after that.
And Susan says, it's a great attitude. I love that whole journey of the shift. And so thanks. That's a great tee up question. And, one of the things, you said that on the Olympic hopeful, and this is the talent transfer identification portal. And it was also, like you said, it was on like a whole docu-series that was going on. But you're also an engineer, right?
Yes.
And so how did you integrate your technical skills? Did that play into your selection process? And then when you become a bobsledder, how does that play as far as your knowledge of being an engineer to get that sled down the track faster?
Oh, it played a huge part. So like, I mean, you just think about like, some of this, like as an engineer, we know that there is more than one way to do something. There's always a way. So like when people say, oh man, there's no way, I don't know how to do it. There's always a way. So like as an engineer, I was able to kind of use that and say, you know what, there's always a way. And I combine basically my, way of thinking as an engineer and then my athleticism, which took some years. And that's the thing about certain things and performances and shifting. Not everyone is going to progress at the same time. So like not everyone's going to hit that, oh, okay, I'm 20 years old, man, I'm really killing it. Sometimes people are like in their late 20s, early 30s, something like that. When they're able to put their pieces together, it's different per person. And so for me, like as a young developing, mind, I struggled a bunch when I was younger. I couldn't figure it out. I was just like, man, I got all these, like, where do I put this thought? And where do I put this? And it was just like a whole bunch of things going on at once. And it was like, well, how do I order my operations? So, as I, developed in school and I went to college and I ended up getting into my degree, computer information systems major with a CS degree. And it's like, I was able to kind of learn more about myself just by being in those particular classes. And I was just like, oh, this makes so much sense. And then they put you in the same class with, peers like yourself, and most of the time we're like almost the same age, which was, or the same birthdays, which is really interesting. And I was just like, oh, yeah, this person's really kind of like me. Okay, this does make sense. This is why I act this way. Got it. And, I was able to learn a little bit more when I moved to Colorado because my second weightlifting coach, he's very technical. and I'm a very technical person. So when he was able to break certain stuff down for me in film and just, just like telling me, like face to face, like you need to do these things, and not just, like having me say, okay, well, here's this group of things that you need to do. Okay, go figure it out. And then let me know if you need help. Like, it wasn't like that. It was like, okay, this is what you need to do. If you stay focused on these things, you're going to do really well. And if you don't, you're probably going to fall short. So it was almost like, here's this yes, here's this no. If you do this, you're going to be good. If you don't do this, you're not. And I was like, okay, I can put a plan together with this knowledge, and then I can formulate something that's going to help me, achieve my goals, which was making my first Olympic team. And then when I was able to see kind of like what that looked like, I was like, well, I think I can also medal if I do what I'm supposed to do. So when I put everything together, I was like, okay, this is pretty simple at this point. I'm like, basketball, got all that, power, sight, speed. I did track and field. There's the speed, and then there's the strength with weightlifting. I'm like, oh, I think I can do it. It shouldn't be that hard as long as I follow my plan and stick to it to the very, very end. Because, I was like, if I deviate off of this, it's probably not going to work.
One of the themes that I'm hearing, Sylvia, and what you're talking about is this connection between being in touch with like what felt good to you and sort of where your passion was, and then what was happening outside of you. In improv, we have this word offers. We say everything's an offer and you can accept or not accept the offer. And so it was like something was given to you, and then there was sort of things where things were accepted or opened up for you, or things were blocked for you. And then you had to make choices about sort of which paths to follow. And I just find it really interesting. I think one of the sort of themes of the show, and John, in your story, is sort of you have opportunities or paths you think you're going to take, and then obstacles come up. But what I'm interested in listening to you talk is sort of the intersection between being in touch with what you really wanted and what was lighting you up, and then what was available to you outside of yourself, and having to sort of matchmake between those things.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about matchmaking when you think about it. It's like, I have this thing of realizing your blessings. And, like I love, I'm deep in my faith, I'm very spiritual about it. And, when I pray about things, I want to feel it in my heart. So how I see it is, it's just like anything. Like, if you really want something, you got to work for it. So if, you're praying for it, but if you're not working for it, do you really want it? Or is it just like something that you're just saying, hey, it's empty, it's almost like an empty prayer. So when I look at this, I'm like, the things that's been set up for me in some ways, I'm like, okay, some of those are blessings and some of those are, this is situation. And because I'm pursuing, particular things like, obviously like degrees, my athletic, like pinnacles, I want to do it for myself, but also like, I want it so bad that I'm able to have some blessings to come out of it, because I'm searching for ways that I can actually achieve this goal that I really want in life. And because of that, more doors are being opened, which provides more opportunity. And then you can look at your opportunities that are presented to you and then kind of make more choices. Okay, I can go this route. I can use this information. Okay, that's unnecessary. It's a little too much. Like, what is actually going to kind of keep me on this path? And then you end up meeting people that are more knowledgeable than you sometimes, or just have ideas of certain things. And then now you have more ideas and you can be creative with it. And so I've just been able to kind of do that throughout life. And like I said, it took me a while to kind of like see certain stuff, because it was really blurry initially. Like, how do I like order these operations? Like, I love math. Like I said, love math, love sciences. And I'm able to kind of think a little bit differently and outside the box, which can get you far. But if you don't really have someone to kind of help you with that direction that you need to go, then you're still kind of just like wandering, like, okay, I think I'm supposed to do this. I think I'm supposed to do that. But there's like, I know I'm supposed to do this and I know I'm supposed to do that. how do I like put these two things together to make it really work at the end of the day? So that's what it's been for me. And, you know, to this day, it's still the same. This summer, I'm trying to see if I can, you know, do really well in long jump. And it's crazy because if I didn't do bobsled, I probably wouldn't have got back into track. So, but everything kind of ties around because I'm a bobsled pilot now. And as a pilot, you take all the runs. You know, you're not taking just like half of them or a third of them. You're taking every single run, which requires you to mostly move your legs. You know, if you really want to, you know, give yourself a good start time and a realistic view of what it's going to be like for a race day, you actually have to push the sled. And I'm like, well, you know, I think it's time to get more sprint days in my program. And I've been holding off on it because it just hasn't really worked for me. And as a brakeman, it wasn't necessarily needed. And, you know, one could argue as a driver is not necessarily needed. But I'm like, well, if I'm taking every run, I need to make sure my legs are going to be prepared to take this many runs in a season, in a day, in a week, and then travel and then do it all again the next week. So it's like, I should probably work on this now. And I feel like with long jump, it's not as stressful in a way of I'm doing 200s, 400, you know, like these unnecessarily long distances for bobsled. You know, bobsled, you do about 30 meters and you're jumping in a sled. So for me to do 120, 30, you know, like it just doesn't make sense. But, you know, with the running and jumping, I'm actually practicing on the new event that's in the Olympics now, monobob, which is one person pushing the sled as fast as they can go. And they're jumping in from the back of the sled because they're the only one pushing. They're pushing from the back, and they jump in, long jumping into the sled or stepping into the sled. I prefer a launch. So this is my time to actually start back working on my load to get into this particular sled, because as a brakeman, you're doing that already, but I've just did a whole year as a driver, which was mostly from the pilot bar on the side of the sled. I'm not jumping in from the back. I'm not really getting as many pushes that I used to do as a brakeman because I'm just learning how to drive. But now I'm like, well, I want to be competitive in some type of way. I've had 1 year under my belt. I want to see what I can do pushing wise. Let's get these legs moving, and then we'll see how the season goes. And I feel like this is one of the best routes to do it, because if you have something to train for, that's not 8 months away from now, you know, if you have something to train for, it's a lot more easier to stay in shape for something.
You know, I love how you just, I mean, there's so, I'm just like geeking out on everything you just said, because there's so much in there. One, I love the forward progress thought. I was writing that down. So you're thinking about this shift that's coming up with this new event that's coming. So you go to a different sport to give yourself the edge, the advantage, but you're already the 5-time national champion in push. You're always shifting your performance ahead of schedule, right? So you're never waiting for that to happen. The second thing is I want to really, what I want to talk about is washing machines. I'm going to show you in a minute. Okay. So I want old washing machines, right? People used to scrub clothes against a rib board. They could have just, you know, and I think, you know, when I found this picture, could have just used your stomach. Could have just used your stomach. Because what is going on with that? You share some insights into training regimen and preparation required for bobsledding at the elite level, right? So you just shared that with us. How do you stay physically and mentally prepared for that press, for always being in that mindset, shifting early?
Well, the thing is, I love to compete. That has been, I think, the main line of my string of athletics that I've been able to do is just competing. And it allows me to kind of have that passion, because if people ask me like, well, do you love, you know, bobsled? Do you love basketball? I'm like, I think there's a love somewhere in there, but like, I love competing to the point where I can stop doing something for a minute and then I can continue when, you know, like, it's kind of like if you just kind of constantly just like beat down on it, you can kind of lose that drive a little bit. So I had to figure out what I actually loved about being an athlete, and I love to compete. And I can, it's in a way of just kind of keeping myself focused. And when I see something kind of coming, again, I think that's more on the, you know, just the foresight of it all. Like, you know, everything has a pattern. And, you know, when I look at stuff, I'm like, okay, well, this is coming up. This is what you want to do. This is your future sites. This is what you want to do in the future. How do you get there without burning out? How do you get there and then maintain your focus? And then how do you make sure you're getting the rest in between times? So, you know, when I kind of think about some of the questions I've gotten for this summer, well, how are you, you know, taking a break between seasons? You know, you just had your winter season and now you're attempting to compete this summer. Like, how does that work? When is your time off? I'm like, well, honestly, I was like, after the games, like I traveled so much. And it was really abnormal for me to travel and then try to stay consistent in training. And, you know, how you really get better at certain things is staying consistent. And I'm like, well, that was very inconsistent last summer, to the point where I'm like, okay, I don't know how Push Champs is going to go, but, you know, I'm just going to make sure I'm as ready as I can be. And then I ended up, you know, breaking another start record. And I was just like, oh, okay, cool. Everything's good. You know, but whenever I started the season, my plan was literally just to drive the bobsled, figure out how to do it, because you weren't necessarily able to do it the years prior to the first year of this quad, which wasn't part of my plan. My plan was to start actually at least a couple driving schools last quad while I was a brakeman, the following the seasons, so then that way it wasn't impeding my progress as a brakeman. It wasn't like me having to stop being a brakeman, be a pilot. Like there was ways to do it. And I said, well, this isn't going to hinder this, because that was the biggest, you know, concern of the coaches. They're like, well, we don't want you to get hurt. And then we don't want, you know, like you to like lose focus on being a brakeman. I'm like, well, if it's at the end of the season, you know, then it's not necessarily, you know, in the way of anything. So like I had plans and I had made time so I could learn certain stuff as a driver, but it wasn't necessarily supported. So with that being said, I'm like, well, how else can I learn how to do these certain things? Like, can I learn the tracks? Can I do POVs? Like, how many drivers can I ask for help? You know, so I'm like, now I'm starting to do other things that's still going to contribute to the main cause, which was being a driver my first year. And now it's my first year and I had to literally cram it all in, which I didn't want to do because it makes things a little bit more difficult, you know, unnecessarily. So now I'm like just kind of on this path of, okay, well, you didn't really do physical training as much because, you know, you were learning how to drive. You had to make that headspace for that, because if you didn't, you'd probably be burnt out a lot more mentally. You probably won't be getting the fast lines. You'll be on the slower lines, which you don't want. And I was like, you know what, this works for me. I can just work on this particular time. And then towards the end of the season, our coaches, you know, they were just like, hey, you know, so you used to push fast. You're not pushing that fast right now. Let's see how fast you can put. They wanted to see a little bit more of me. And it was that little push where you're just like, man, it's not completely part of the plan. But I'm like, but as a coach, like, you know, like you do have to push your athletes. So like, as an athlete, I'm like, I do need to be pushed a little bit. So I actually didn't mind, but, you know, it was frustrating to see those super slow downtimes. It was the worst downtimes I've ever had, but I pushed faster than I did basically the entire season. And, you know, I'm pushing, you know, a monobob just as fast as a 2-man. And it's just like, well, you know, clearly I can push faster than what I'm doing, you know, but, you know, the results at the end for the downtime wasn't tasteful, but it was like one of those things that it's going to happen regardless of, you know, if you're ready for it or not. So I just accepted it. I was just like, okay, you're going to be upset. It's okay. And I had other coaches come in and they're just like, it's okay. You made it down the hill. You didn't crash. You still learned, you know, like these are the positive things that you can take out of this particular run. And I'm like, okay, that makes me feel better. I'm not a crappy driver. It was just in that one moment, you know. And so at the end of the day, I ended up with a start record. So now on the start record in Lake Placid in monobob, because, you know, the coaches pushed me a little bit more. And then plans are just like coming together. So like next year I'll have, you know, a slightly different plan for certain stuff. And, you know, that's the thing. It's like trial and error. And then, you know, at some point you got to put it all together. And right now it's still in that phase of like, you're still developing, because last year was just your first year. And there's been people that's been driving for like 2-3 years to like maybe 16, 17 years. So like you got a big gap to close. Yeah. And with that being said, it's like, you know, make the time that you need. Give yourself the mental rest that you need. Make sure that you're still developing a plan. Make sure you're still taking care of yourself, because if you're not taking care of yourself at the end of the day, everything else kind of goes to crap, because now you're mentally not ready or there, you're physically not prepared or functionally fit to do anything. And it just kind of like works together in a way to where I can just kind of make it work, and it's one of those things. It's kind of like, see what's going to happen. And that's what I did as a brakeman. I'm like, well, all you can do is do your best and then see what happens. If you make it, you make it. If you don't, then you don't. But, make sure you can have that clear visual of, how is this going to go? And I see things right now and I'm just like, I don't know about this, but it's a skill and not just athleticism. And that's the difference between certain things. Athleticism, do it all day. When you're learning skills, like you got to get down and learn the skill, or your athleticism it can only get you so far.
What you just said reminds me of where you started, which is in some ways, like there was a moment where your talent, your sort of innate ability meant that you missed out on some skill building or some development, right? Because people are like, oh, you're good at this. And then you didn't get that baseline skill building support, right? When you were doing the weightlifting. And I think that can happen to many of us, right? Like if we're sort of innately good at something or it comes easily, then we don't have the foundation, or we don't know how we're doing it or how we succeeded, or we don't have that sort of foundational support. And then we're like, oh no, now what? Or how did I get here? Right?
That's completely what happened to me in weightlifting. I mean, I had talent and they're just like, go out there, then that was kind of like the way of coaching back then too. It was, okay, go out there, go produce, make it happen, do your best, that type of thing. There wasn't much instruction. I did get some instruction in basketball. We had a really great basketball team. So whenever our coach would say, hey, let's do these things. And we're just like, yes, we didn't ask any questions. We just said, yes, okay, cool, let's go do it. And then we were being successful. So like when you're successful and you're doing these things constantly, then you're like, okay, this is the way. I don't know if anyone knows that quote by Mandalorian, but they said this is the way. And that's kind of what it was in basketball. I was like, oh, okay, well, we're winning everything. This is the way to do it. And I carried that same mentality into weightlifting, but then also I just wasn't getting the coaching that I needed to be that, at the end of it all. Like, can I be successful at the end and not just the beginning? Right. And I'm like, okay, this is a problem. And I didn't notice it until 3 years in. So when I got to bobsled, I'm okay, not going to do this. Right. I know how to, I got some stuff from basketball. I got some stuff from weightlifting. Let's put it together and not make these same mistakes. And, certain stuff I saw this year, my first year driving, I saw some of those things that could have hurt me if I wasn't aware, if I wasn't made aware of these things in weightlifting, I wouldn't have caught it, in some ways in bobsled, because I saw a bunch of it and I'm like, I see these red flags. I'm like, red flag. Don't do those things. Don't do those things. Keep the straight and narrow. And it's like, it was a bunch of, the feedback I was getting was like, well, this isn't the way. And I'm like, shoot, I don't want that way, because I remember that way and it didn't work for me. And, so I kept having to say like, well, these are the things that work for me. These are the things that work for me. That's optimal, but this is my optimal, and then it's the same thing as a driver. I'm like, okay, there's this happening. Great. There's this happening. That's a red flag. I don't want that, and so I'm just like, okay, this is what I need. This is what I need.
Yeah. Just to jump in for a second, I think this is a really fascinating and sort of profound idea that a red flag can be, I'm succeeding, but I don't know how. Right? Mm-hmm. That I'm sort of unconsciously competent, but I'm not grounded. And in your story a minute ago, or sort of where you are now, right? Like, I know you guys know a lot more about sort of all the technical stuff than you did. So I'm sort of in the sort of listener mode of like, that sounds amazing. And I missed half of what you're actually talking about. But I think what I got is that in some ways you had to sort of step back your success. You had to be less successful or less competent in order to build the skills and ultimately be more successful. Did I get that right?
You did. In bobsled too, I've seen it. Some of the best drivers, they're not really fast push athletes, but they can drive the heck out of the track. But at some point, you do have to push faster to be able to drive faster. And because they're able to kind of learn it at these slower speeds, you can actually gain speed as you're going down the hill because it's coming slower initially and then it's getting faster. So you kind of have that little warm up of like, okay, I'm going down the hill now, and then okay, I see it, and then it's just a rhythm after that. But when you go down full, guns blazing, or full out, it comes to you really quickly. So you have to be able to react differently. And how I've seen it over the last few years is like sometimes the slower push pilots are actually able to drive faster than the faster push pilots because, the receiving part, you still have to give your brain time and your eyes and stuff, everything. It's hand-eye coordination. If you can't coordinate that from the beginning, you're probably going to lose a bunch of time in the first few corners. And then that's just going to compile down the hill. And then by, the middle of portion of the track, you're probably falling behind. You're probably going into the red because, there's just a different part that was processed. So this first year was about, don't worry about pushing fast. You're going to have to do it initially. Like, you can't be afraid of your own talents. I'm like, you're going to have to suck it up. But for this part, just enjoy and drive.
Don't be afraid of your own talents. Oh my God.
All those things. That's it.
I got to remember that. Don't be afraid of your own talent. Oh my God.
Right?
That is like the line of the and then, Susan says, exactly, natural abilities - folks assume have the basic skill sets, so have to go back and learn or relearn the basic skills for stronger architecture of building optimum abilities. I really love how she kind of summarized that.
Yes.
But, you got to write that. I hope you wrote that down. I was trying. I wanted to read Susan's
recording,
comment, and then I was trying to write down at the same time. I said, but that was like the bomb saying right there to Sylvia Hoffman. We bow. That was great. I don't know, Kat, do you have a game? Have you thought about something that we could play?
I do have a game. I mean, we could talk forever, but I guess it's game time. Yes, here is the game that I've thought of, and it's called New Choice. I'm inspired. I am inspired because you just keep making new choices, Sylvia. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to let the two of you have a conversation. And every now and then, I'm just going to coach you to make a new choice. So a new choice could be anything. You could just say a new line of dialogue in your scene. And when I say a scene, you could just a conversation. It could be any conversation. But for example, if you said, hi, John, how are you today? And I said new choice, you might say, I can't believe you got me up so early to do this silly podcast. Right? Or you could just say, if you said, hi, John, how are you? And I said new choice, you might go, hi, John, how are you? So it could be different words. It could be a different, anything you want. All right. So you just start the scene and I'll just say new choice from every now and then.
So I was thinking about your long jump the other day, and you just came back to the track and you went over to the Air Force Academy. What was going on in your head as far as relating the long jump to, pushing the sled down the track?
I was just thinking, okay, don't do anything stupid. If it hurts, don't do it. And
new choice.
Don't hurt yourself. So I decided to warm up differently and sit down for a little bit. I was warming up an hour ahead of time. That was a little unfortunate, but hey, it gave me a chance to warm up properly and
new choice
my moments. And it was super windy outside. What if, the wind was the bobsled? I'm having to jump over the wind and there's a way, like through and in, just like I was in a sled, but it was nice. It was windy, warm, very cloudy out.
Well, I remember, when I was doing long jump and I was at the Paralympic Games, and it was pretty windy. I remember when I was doing the 100-meter dash in Sydney, Australia, and it was just fantastic. But the wind was at my back. I remember when I was running around the curve on the 200-meter dash, and I was leaning in so hard that my leg was trying to keep up and just catch up with me. Have you found some of those choices that you make in your performance shift to be those changes that kind of elevate you?
I just take things one step at a time.
New choice.
And then sometimes, I got to take a few steps forward, like squeezing 4 years into 2.5.
New choice.
But when I think about track, I think that it's it involves bobsled in some way. You sprint really fast, and do your best, and sometimes there's hurdles in the way, and you got to jump over them, or like there's sand that you have to jump, hop, skip, and jump over there, and but you want to land with grace. So
New choice.
So with that being said, with bobsled. As I'm practicing, as of yesterday, and trying to load into the sled with grace, and not be a wind sail as I'm going from the ice into the sled. There's certain movements that need to happen, and
New choice.
Work on them. But this is the path that I chose in life. My engineering starts to kick in sometimes, and I think about all the options that I have. I can either continue or I can fall back, and honestly, I just choose to continue and pursue.
I love it. That's so good. That's a good game.
Guys, thank you for letting us play with you.
Yeah, I mean, John was on. I was like, man, he's winning right now.
I'm definitely no winning. I want the competition with you. New choice. It's always.
I was like, man, yeah, you gotta do better.
I actually, it's a fun game. It's also helpful in relationships sometimes. My husband and I find that when things are not going well, like we've started a conversation that is not helpful, sometimes we can just go like, new choice, and let me try that again. So I offer it to anybody out there who might have said something they didn't want to have said, or trying something they don't want to say. Sometimes just going new choice can help.
That is why she is the amazing Kat Koppett. And just does fantastic. So I want to ask one more question, and then we can wrap the show up. I know there are very few people that make an Olympic team, Paralympic team. Very, very few, and very even more few from there that get atop the medal podium. Bronze medals, silver medal, gold medal. What was it like for you with Alana Myers-Taylor on that podium, when you have gone through and just accomplished what many people never start out to accomplish and actually achieve? What was happening?
Oh man, I was just happy. So once I reached the podium, I had already cried my eyes out. So I was just like, all right, you've cried enough, and just, be happy and just like be excited. So initially they let us up on the podium, and we're kind of waving to everybody, and then there's this moment where, and I saw this on the replay, she was attempting to do the whole like you had to hold each other's hand, you wave it up in the air, and in that one split second, as she was like going to reach up and we were going to hold hands for a bit, I like eyeballed the medals that were coming my way, and they were on this platter, and I'm just like, what? So I just immediately was just like, yeah, I just like took my hand down, and I'm just like punching the air, and I'm just like, yeah, this is for me, like that's my medal, it's coming my way. And I'm just like, and I was like just super excited. I'm just like, yes, and then I'm like staring at it, and then she's just like, let me put it on you. I was just like, okay. It's like my first time. So I'm just like, this is my first time. I'll just let her continue to lead from here. She's like, let me put it on you. So, she puts, my medal on me. This is my medal.
Yeah, my God.
Look, there it is.
This is the medal that I won, and I love it. I've already nicknamed it Bronzy. I've only named 2 objects in my life, which is my vehicle, my Jeep. I call it Willie. It's a Willie's edition. And then my Olympic medal, which is nicknamed Bronzy. And, so like, she's like, let me put the medal on you. I'm like, okay. And then I'm just like, oh, this is cool. okay, let me get yours on, like, so I was like, I didn't know if I was holding up the show, I'm just like excited and stuff. And, and then, like we hold hands and then we're just like, like really excited that we like work together as a team. And that was the biggest thing. It was a team effort, and it was really hard because we didn't race together all season. And here I am, I'm just like, okay, your plan is to, obviously make the Olympic team, but you have 2 opportunities to medal. And that's, obviously like with 1 pilot each. And I had been racing with a different pilot the entire season. And like my muscle, like everything, my training and stuff, because I told the coaches, I'm like, I plan to do something massive at the Olympics. I was like, I plan to push some massive numbers. I am ready for this. And then they said, okay, yep, we're going to switch pilots. And I'm like, what? So I'm just like, now I'm like having to rethink this entire plan that I had to just be a complete beast. And I'm just like, okay, different person that you're pushing with, you got to have a different technique. And I'm like, how are you going to do this in your peaking phase of competition? Because in a peaking phase, I mean, John, you know this, you don't do a major change during peaking phases, because that's when you get injured. And as a brakeman, if you get injured, usually you're just out. They just switch you with someone else. If you're a pilot and you get injured, you got to suck it up, and see what you can do and produce. But I'm just like, how do I do this without hurting myself? And then also, hopefully they might change their mind, and they did it. And I'm just like, okay, well, you still need to like, I believed in myself with either pilot, but it was like, how do you make sure that you're going to be fully capable and fast to push another pilot that's one of the fastest push pilots in the world, that has most of the start records in the world? I'm like, this is not going to be fun. My body is probably going to hurt. And it did. My body, I was in pain at the Olympics. I was physically in pain. And I was just like, this sucks. And then it just kind of goes to the mental. But I'm just like, you got a job to do. You're here. Produce, figure it out. It was one of those things, you go back to your basketball days, figure it out. You know how to win, go figure it out. And, like I'm also letting my pilot know where I'm at, right, in those moments. And, and she knows that I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that we're going to be the number 1 sled out there. And no matter what it was going to take, like she knew this, everyone knows this. I'm like, I'm going to give 100%. And, like, that's what I'm going to give you every single time. And so I make it work. I'm getting deep tissue massages days before race day, because like I said, I'm in pain at this point. I'm like, if I do a wrong move, if I take, maybe 10 too many steps in this warm up, I might like pull something. I might tear something. Like my muscles were on the verge. And so I was getting deep tissue massages, which you don't do, because it actually softens the muscles too much to where you can't really keep them fired and activated. But because my muscles were working so hard,
I made that mistake at the Olympic trials in 1988, right before I ran the hurdles. I got a massage.
It will break you. It
broke me. I was like, "What? I can't run. What's going on?"
You have no pop. You have no
like
bounce.
I'm a dream. I'm running slow.
Yeah, and but my muscles were so taxed to where it was like it was actually needed. It was either you do this and you're still able to have the normal, or you don't do this and you're probably going to hurt yourself. So I got the things that were needed. I had the right personnel that was there. They had already worked with me, top of the line, sports med people and staff. And, they all have my back. They're just like, man, this is good. We're here. You let us know what you need and, we're going to help you. And they did. And then I was able to step onto that line and be ready. I was like, this is as ready as it's going to be. I feel good. I think that I've done everything in my power to make sure that we're going to be the fastest sled off the line. I'm doing my best to make sure that we're in the best position to win something, as possible, because there was more than just, Team USA. We had 2 sleds that were capable of medaling. There was, three German sleds, a Swiss sled, and there's, all these other Canadians. We had other competitors that were, in the line, Australia, we had people that were there that they could have they were capable of medaling. And it was like, well, how can we give ourselves the best chance out of everyone to medal? And at the end of the day, it's a race who can make the least amount of mistakes and who can stay on the fastest lines the longest time. And, and at the end of the day, we got bronze. And, I was on that podium like, wow, I did all this stuff just to get here. This is crazy, like straight and narrow, head down, eyes forward, bypass the red flags. Bypass the red flags. And, that was like a result of me not quitting on myself, me keeping my promises to myself to do my best no matter what, and, see where my athleticism can take me, and, see what I can do with what I've learned to be, as an engineer. Like, can I put all those pieces together? Yes. Can I make a plan that works? Yes. It's probably the first 4-year plan I've ever made in my life, to the T though. Like, not just like, I had these ideas, like, no, it was like, you need to do all these things, like this. I had steps, I had goals, I had people in my corner to help, I had the right teams around me to where I could be successful. And I could also like call my old coaches and friends back and say, hey, I'm going through these problems. What do you think? Like, give me a biased opinion. Okay. Don't give me a biased opinion. Like, just, like stroke my ego and we're good. Like there's certain things that you just need to succeed in life. And I felt like that was that moment where I was like, you put everything together. You defied the odds. You defied the politics. There was people thinking that I wasn't fast. And, I'm just like, what? I just didn't go pro in track. I did basketball, but I was like, I didn't go pro in track, but that doesn't mean I'm not fast. And, with our sprint trials, it was, I had my 60 meter was, I think, 12 or 1400s off the NCAA indoor record. And this is, laser gated eyes. So like, it's, it's as accurate as it's going to be. And I'm like, wow, I just did this. And I'm like, I don't even train like that. Like, I was like, well, hey, this is me producing this after only running 60s. When I know those same people that competed in the 60s, NCAA 60 meter events, I'm like, they're probably running 100s, 200s. I'm like, and here I am just running 60s and pushing the sled. I'm like, and lifting some weights, and I'm like, and I'm doing this. I'll pat myself on the back. I'll say good job, because that's not easy, and not everyone can do it. And I recognize those blessings that I have for talents. And I'm like, not everyone has these talents, and not everyone can have this combination of events in their life that can put them on this path. So I'm like, kudos to you for figuring it out and making a path for yourself and never quitting on yourself. And that's what I tell myself. I'm like, and that little bit gives me like that mental stimulus, like, you can do this, but then, there's always like, okay, well, think it through, but yeah, you can do it. But, what are you really going to need to be successful in what you're thinking that you can do? And that's just the biggest thing. And I this last year it was just amazing. It was like all the pieces kind of just like was there. And it's like, don't mess this up. Different words used, but don't mess this up.
That was Garrett. That was Garrett's words. Remember when his commander was about to go outside of the ship for the first time on his first spacewalk? Don't screw this up. His commander came out. Don't screw this up.
Don't mess this up. This is all you. Don't mess. This is your chance.
I love that. So I think, we're at time definitely for the show. You can reach me, everybody, if you want to, at johnregister.com. And I'm a professional speaker. I'm out there. And then Kat Koppett, I got your name right this time, Kat.
You did.
I've been spelling the name all kind of ways.
I don't want to know.
I've been doing next name, next spelling of her name. And then I think, is this right for you? I want to make sure I got it right.
Is. Yeah.
Okay. So then we got Sylvia's up there, Sylvia-Hoffman.com. So make sure that you're getting out there. She's a professional speaker too. And she's on the JR team.
Hey.
Yes, the Inspired Communications team for speakers. So make sure that you definitely book her. We had some great comments that came in as well today. So Susan was on, and we want to thank her for doing that as well. That's it for our show for today on Performance Shift. We want to really thank Sylvia. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today. We hope that all of you out there enjoyed our discussion, gained some valuable insights that you can apply to your own life and work. And if you want to learn more about the power of transformation, how you can shift your own performance to achieve your goals and dreams, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and join us for our next episode. And if you found this episode helpful, we'd love for you to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us to improve the show and reach more like you. Kat?
That's right. If you liked the show, please spread the word, leave a review. If you didn't like the show, just shh, nobody needs to know.
If you didn't like the show, next, it's called something else. So join us on our next episode of Performance Shift.
And let's dive into the art of successfully navigating change together.
Go forth and inspire your world, and we'll see you next week, everybody. Bye for now.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.